Good morning again. This reading is from, good morning to you. Nice to see you. This reading is from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda, which are parallel commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And this is week 2, but we didn't get to read week 1. This often happens at Ananda, or at least here, because the first week of the year, that Sunday usually falls very close to Yoganandaji's birthday, which is January 5th. And so we inevitably end up focusing on Master's birthday and then sometimes skip this reading, sometimes meaning often. And so I'd like to read the week 1, and as it relates also then to week 2. So week 1, at the heart of silence, the eternal word. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John in the Bible, these immortal lines appear. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Human vision beholds individuality and separation everywhere. Divine vision beholds the oneness of cosmic vibration, of which all things, no matter how diverse, are manifestations. Cosmic sound, the, quote, Word of God, the cosmic light, these are eternal. The world, as revealed to us by our senses, is illusory. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda relates an early experience he received of the divine aspect of reality. Sitting on my bed one morning, I fell into a deep reverie. What is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. An immense flash of light at once manifested to my inward gaze. Divine shapes of saints, sitting in meditation posture in mountain caves, formed like miniature cinema pictures on the large screen of radiance within my forehead. "Who are you?" I spoke aloud. "We are the Himalayan yogis." The celestial response is difficult to describe. My heart was thrilled. "Ah, I long to go to the Himalayas and become like you." The vision vanished, but the silvery beams expanded in ever-widening circles to infinity. What is this wondrous glow? I am Ishwara. I am light. The voice was as murmuring clouds. I want to be one with thee. Out of the slow dwindling of my divine ecstasy, I salvaged a permanent legacy of inspiration to seek God. Wise are we if we meditate on that experience of Yogananda's and salvage from it even a breath of his inspiration. For, quite simply, there is nothing else. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 7th chapter, I make and unmake this universe. Apart from me, nothing exists, O Arjuna. All things, like the beads of a necklace, are strung together on the thread of my consciousness and are sustained by me. And now going on to week 2. Did God create the universe or become it? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, contains a passage that explains the essential truth that creation is a process of becoming. The universe is not separate from God the Creator, but a part of Him, even as our own dream creations during sleep are figments of our consciousness. God's is the life, God's the reality. Not a melody could be composed, not a poem written, were the melody and the poem not already there, simply waiting to be expressed. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men, And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Ego-directed desire is like static. It distorts the radioed messages of infinity. But the pristine impulse from the divine, undistorted by limitation and delusion, is the life that gives rise to all that is. As the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, I am the fluidity of water. I am the silver light of the moon and the golden light of the sun. I am the Om chanted in all the Vedas, the cosmic sound moving as if soundlessly through the ether. I am the manliness of men. I am the good sweet smell of the moist earth. I am the luminescence of fire, the sustaining life of all creatures. I am self-offering in those who would expand their little lives into cosmic life. O Arjuna, know me as the eternal seed of all creatures. In the perceptive, I am their perception. In the great, I am their greatness. In the glorious, it is I who am their glory. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. The microphone was off. Sorry if anyone survived the broadcast this long in silence. I turned it off, and didn't turn it back on. So, in the beginning there was no sound. These commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita are a central part of our teaching here. And when I say our teaching, I mean the teaching not of us, but of Yoganandaji, in fact, of this whole line of gurus. The Master was once talking about his mission of why he came to the West, and I think by extension why he came to Earth at all. And he said, I came for the interpretation of the scriptures and for bringing Kriya Yoga, this meditation technique. So these two things, the interpretation of the scriptures and Kriya Yoga. Now many people come to this path having read autobiography of a yogi or heard of these teachings and so on, and they're often seeking Kriya Yoga. And of course, it's a wonderful thing to seek, and if you don't have Kriya initiation yet, I encourage you to pursue it if it's something that attracts you. It's a great technique of liberation. And Lahiri Mahashaya said something like, I consider Kriya to be the greatest technique of liberation through self-effort ever given to mankind. And so it's wonderful in that way. One of the reasons why people seek it so much is because in the autobiography of a yogi it says that 30 seconds of Kriya practice can give you the same spiritual growth as you would normally achieve after 1 year of proper living. And again, that's proper living, not 1 year of living, but 1 year of proper living, which, it's hard to have 1 day of proper living. No bad thoughts, all happiness, all calmness, all excellent reaction to everything, and so on. So Kriya is this shortcut, referring to the biblical quote, we're talking of the keys to the kingdom, and so Master referred to Kriya often as the keys to the kingdom. You can get into heaven directly through this acceleration of spiritual growth. So again, it's understandable that Kriya Yoga is attractive to people, and why Master brought it. This was part of the mission of these masters, to bring Kriya Yoga as a technique back to earth. And it was always on earth, but it was forgotten by, as it says in the autobiography of a yogi, it was forgotten by people in general due to priestly secrecy and man's indifference. And that's important to remember, because we can sometimes feel like, why does God hide the truth? Why are these things hard to discover? Why did it take me so long to figure out what was up and down on the spiritual path and all these things? Part of it is that there are secrets, and part of it is due to our indifference. Sometimes we just didn't notice all the opportunities that were given us. I think we all come onto the path when we get on it seriously, and people often express the thought, oh, I came too late. I wish I had come sooner. And I think on one level we all feel that way. I came onto the path and wished I had come onto it sooner, and that I had wasted my life up until then, and I started at the age of 20. And I thought, oh, how terrible. And so, yet I had an opportunity to get on the path a little bit earlier. My father had some books on yoga asanas, and I opened up those books and I saw them, the asanas, and I was not familiar with anything like this, and I thought, interesting. And I put it away. It was strange. I wasn't repelled by it, but I wasn't sufficiently drawn to it, attracted to it. Then I had another opportunity. This was actually in Chennai in 1997. I think 1997, maybe. No, it couldn't have been. No, 1996. And it was at the Theosophical Society. And I was, I don't know if you remember, but back in 1996 in Adyar looked a lot different then. I mean, it looked like the Theosophical Gardens. The whole thing was just forest everywhere. At least that's how I remembered it. And so I was thinking about philosophy and religion, and I was very unreligious and unspiritual at that time. But I was seeking truth, and so I walked around the gardens and enjoyed myself, and then I came to the bookshop, and I saw some of the books, and I thought, okay, let's see if any of these books has anything to say about truth, because I don't really believe in all this religious stuff, but I dare you to tell me something that I will find useful. And so I picked a book off the rack, and I opened it up, and it said, "Beware the constant treachery of the senses." And I said, "Pah! Ridiculous!" and put it back. Just the constant treachery of the senses? I mean, having everybody be paranoid? How am I constantly being betrayed by my senses? Silly! Hogwash! And I left it. And, it was right there. It's true. Beware the constant treachery of the senses. Guess whose senses were betraying him in that moment? Me. It was just sort of like, I'm not being betrayed. That's how they get you. There's that phrase, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people that he didn't exist. And it's the same with Maya, though we do say Maya, I know Maya exists. But Maya says, doesn't matter. You can say I exist. I still get you. And so I had an opportunity right then. If I had but had an open mind, if I had noticed, if I had perceived it, the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. I didn't comprehend it at all. Now, on the other hand, I just wasn't ready. That's all that it ever comes down to. So when we look back and think, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that, doesn't matter. We just weren't ready. And we should have, we must have, if only, who cares? At least we're ready now. I mean, we could celebrate that, thank God we did come to this path. Thank God we did come to these teachings. Thank God we did decide to seek truth seriously in our lives, and not that it was 10 years from now that we would have looked back and said, oh, if only I had taken level 1 back then, or whatever it was, and so on. And so, if only I had come to the question and answer session at Tatvaloka and so on. So, we don't have to look back at missed opportunities and with regret. It may be natural to do so, but the point is, here we are now. And from here, we can only go forward. And maybe there's a video of it you can watch and so on. So you can kind of feel like you were there anyway. So the point is that when we have this sense of coming to the path late, we should disregard it. We should make use of the time that we have now and celebrate, because there's always enough time to go as far as we possibly can, and to also enjoy what we have received, and to pray for more and more openness, because even though we now are open to these teachings, we can be more open. None of us is as fully open as we would like unless one of us is a master. That's what it takes. To be fully open makes you a master. So let us not also feel overly, pleased with our current place, not displeased either, but motivated to keep going. Why? Because the more we do on this path, the more we follow it, the more we practice, the more we feel joy. You see, it's like having one jangri and then inora, without any stomachache. No cavities, no spoiled hunger, no problem. You can have all infinite jangris that you want on this path, on the path to God, any path to God, of course. That's what God is like. He's described as Rasha or Rasa, but Rasha is, and they say with the Bengali accent, the most relishable, the tastiest treat, even better than jangri and Mysore pak combined. The best thing you can imagine, double that. And that is not even a hint of God. Master said the light was brighter than 1,000 suns. And in the Bible, in the Gita, it says if 1,000 suns were to appear in the sky, it would not even begin to describe the light of God. But Master also clarified, he said that light is like 1,000 suns, but it's not a harsh light. It's not a blinding light. It's a gentle light. Because even the sun, one sun, is too much for us to look directly at in the sky. And it hurts. And this light is not like that, though much brighter. So, when we think of Master's mission, Yoganandaji's mission, we can understand Kriya Yoga for self-effort and liberation, but also, he said, I came for the interpretation of the scriptures. Now, that means bringing together these same essential truths in the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, in the teachings of Jesus Christ, in the teachings of Krishna. Master called it the original Christianity as taught by Christ, and the original yoga as taught by Krishna. And so it isn't to say that these two were unique. In fact, he said his church, he called it the church of all religions. And it wasn't even particularly focusing on one level, on Christianity, on Hinduism, but rather the eternal truth, the Sanatan Dharma, beneath each one, saying, this is the truth. It's sort of like saying, do you like German physics or British physics or Tamilian physics? It's like physics is physics. It's not British because of Isaac Newton and the law of gravity, and it's not Tamilian because of Chandrasekhar and C.V. Raman and all these others. No, it is just is. It is just what it is. Even on the moon and Mars, they follow the same laws of physics. And I don't know how many Tamil speakers are on Mars or how many Britishers are on the moon actively at the moment, but still, the physics holds. It's independent. As Sri Yukteswar said regarding this, when he asked Yogananda about getting an astrological bangle like this, and Yogananda said, I don't believe in astrology. And Sri Yukteswar said, it is never a question of belief. It is only what is true that matters. He said the universe would be fairly chaotic if it could not operate with the sanction of human belief. You see, if the laws would only work if people believed in them, then it would be very tricky. Just to even, if we stop believing in gravity, we might start to float up off and disappear and end up on the moon. And so this kind of thing makes us realize that we just need to know what is true. So this underlying truth beneath each of these scriptures is what Master came to bring. He came also When someone asked him, you call your church the church of all religions, but why do you focus really only on Hinduism or yoga and Christianity? That's just two. That's not all. And Yoganandaji could have given an explanation more or less like I just said, the underlying truth of all. If you can show that two are show the same truth, it's enough then to show that all have the same truth. But Master in that conversation didn't say that. He said it was the will of Babaji. Just like I am only acting under orders. And in this case, that argument works. If we are following the orders of the Guru, truly, that's enough of an explanation for anything. Just following orders. And so the Babaji, when he appeared, when Lahiri Mahashaya met Babaji, he told him, Babaji said, Jesus Christ appeared to me and said, what has happened to my followers? What has happened to my religion, the way it's practiced? They do good works, but they've lost sight of inner communion, of divine realization, personal effort for becoming one with God. Let us together send a new teaching into this world to reignite, to replenish this spirituality. I'm smiling because I'm remembering there is a line in the Festival of Light which says, raise your hands and chanting Om, ask that the light of God, no, ask that the power of God replenish you in body, mind, and soul. And during a time in the Ananda Palo Alto Church when there was a lot of renovation and changing and fixing up of everything, one of the acharyas said, and raise your hands in chanting Om, pray that the power of God refurbish you in body, mind, and soul. so anyway, I digress. So think of this also. So this whole work was started by Babaji and Christ having this conversation. But also, when Lahiri Mahashaya met Babaji, among their earliest words were that Babaji called him, so he said, Lahiri, or come, so that was one word, he heard that, Lahiri. Then he said, do you know me? Do you know this place? Second sentence, and Lahiri said, Mahashaya said, I don't, and in fact I need to go, I need to get back to my office, it's getting dark, I don't want to be caught in the jungle. And what did Babaji say? The office was brought for you, and not you for the office. And it says in the autobiography of a yogi, Lahiri Mahashaya says, basically he was surprised that this ascetic knew him and that he would quote the Bible to him, because the Bible says the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. And just to go into that story briefly so it makes sense, the Sabbath is a day of rest. And so on the Sabbath, you're not supposed to do any kind of work and just rest. And actually think about God, not just rest, but meditate. And Master even said, we are reviving the custom. We need to dedicate one day to God. He actually spent a lot of time on that teaching. But what happened, why Jesus said these words, the Sabbath was made for man, meaning this day of rest was made for your sake. It wasn't that it is a law that you should follow, because as happens in time, these things start to lose their original clarity. People take it too far. And so before, why was this teaching given by Moses? Because people weren't taking any day thinking of God. So he said, take one day, God says, to think of me. So, okay, you mean we have to stop this and we have to actually, close Google Chrome and we have to just think about God all day. Okay, fine. And so then it became this rigid thing that you can't do any work at all. And so you can't even turn on a light switch, so people just leave their lights on, so they wake up and the lights are still on, and all these, anyway, that's another story. But it became a rigid thing that if you did any work on the Sabbath, you got in trouble. And so Jesus plucked an ear of corn on the Sabbath day, and he did other things. Actually, he did a lot of his healings of people on the Sabbath day, which got people upset about it. But when he plucked this ear of corn, he said, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. This is a deep teaching, that all of these divine laws, the 10 commandments, the yamas and the niyamas, you better meditate 90 minutes a day to practice Kriya Yoga and all these things, they're made for our own benefit. It is not that we are supposed to fit into them for their own sake, that they have an abiding reality. And that's one reason Master said he didn't like the name commandments for the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill and all these things. He said they should be called the 10 rules for eternal happiness. He said because it's for our own sake. We will benefit if we do these things, and otherwise we will suffer. So the rules are given to us as guidelines to help us to avoid suffering, saying we have figured these things out, follow it. You know, when a doctor gives medicine and you say, oh, I have this really bad stomach ache and it's really, I don't know why I went to that roadside dabba 4 times, but now I'm feeling very ill and feverish and so on. And the doctor says, here, you take some amoxicillin and you also take some tetracycline. And we don't say, oh, yeah? And now amoxicillin. Yen? What kind is it? Yevalava? And why do you say amoxicillin? What gives you the right to tell? I don't know if I feel like it. Don't tell me what to do. No, we just go, do you have some water? You know, I want to get out of this pain. We don't question. The doctor has given this, right, doctor, has given us this, and we just take it. I want to get better. So then why is it that the spiritual doctor gives us all these teachings? We should take them in the same way instead of going, I don't know. I don't know if I want to practice nonviolence. I may not feel like it. And if I should practice nonviolence, but the other fellow practices violence, that is not fair. You see, it's funny, people sometimes have pride in their rules of driving on the road. I follow the laws. I didn't overtake. I didn't pass on the wrong side. I stopped at the light. But then as soon as one other person breaks the rules, it's just fury. Not just because they broke the rules, but because I'm following and it's not fair that he doesn't. And again, everybody comes to the truth in their own time and in their own way. One day that person will discover the law, the rules of driving, hopefully not in the hard way. And then on the other hand, we who get so mad that he's breaking the rules, then we will also discover that, listen, if only for the sake of BP, just let it go. Pray for the person. I hope you are safe. I had this experience. There's this practice in America called lane splitting, which is hard to understand because in order to understand it, you have to imagine people driving on a road in lanes. No, I'm kidding. But actually in America, it's rigid. You stay in your lane. And if you want to change your lane, you turn on your blinker, you look around, you send an announcement, I'm about to change lanes if that's okay with everyone. Okay, va? And then you slowly move over into your lane, as opposed to the sort of masala that we have here. It has its own rules too. As Haridasji said, it's kind of like swimming or surfing. You just the current's going this way and we all go this way. And he means it very seriously. It's very easy to drive. Just you go with the flow. And I thought, but what if the flow isn't going where you want to go? But anyway, never mind. So that when all the cars though are in tight lanes together and moving slowly, then a two-wheeler, which they're very rare actually in America by comparison. I don't even know how to give a proper well, it's not like a limousine. I don't know if we had. Are there limousines? Have you seen limousines here? I don't think. Yeah, but about as common as limousines are here are about as common as two-wheelers are in most places in America. Maybe that's putting it too far, but something like that. Maybe Innovas, but I don't know. But anyway, so the motorcycle, as you're well aware, can fit between all these cars. And so when all the cars are stopped, the two-wheeler can get in between and then just go. And here, it doesn't matter as much because the speeds aren't so high. And also, the two-wheeler people are thrilled. You see, you have that big car and you're very proud of it, but I will get there first. and just get there. Sometimes the traffic is so bad that the person walking comes and smiles at everyone. Oh, look at you all, you're very fancy. Oh, I get there and no petrol. So there was a motorcycle. We were all, I don't even remember what this was related to, but we were all sort of driving slowly on the highway because there was some congestion, but we were about to speed up, and speeding up means, you get to 120, 140, 180 on these roads, and so it's quite fast. And so this two-wheeler went right by me going down this between these two lanes, and I got so mad that's dangerous. He should not do that, because you don't expect someone to come between the lanes, and so people can suddenly pull over and not expect this. And so I honked, which also is an uncommon occurrence in America. Again, this is a little different. And so I honked my horn and broke the silence, the otherwise silent roadway. And the two-wheeler went like this. I mean, the guy shivered on the motorcycle, and I was horrified. I think I'd frightened him. I honked the horn, and he was probably just as nervous as I was about going between these cars, but he had to get somewhere to go. And when I honked, I thought, oh my God, what if he had fallen or something? Because I honked at him. What you're doing is dangerous. Oh my God. And so I just, that cured me of it. I said, look, somebody doing something dangerous, pray for them. I hope you're okay. Be safe. Yes, it was fun the way you took that turn in front of all the cars and the police officer somehow and made it all the way through and didn't kill anyone. Good for you. Good job. Yet again, 0 deaths today. Fantastic. And just pray for them, because when we put that anger out, that tension, we may be adding to the problem. And in my case, I almost caused a horrible problem. I thank God. What would it have been like to live with that knowledge? So anyway, it's helpful. In fact, it says in the Bible, Jesus said, judge not that ye not be judged, that ye be not judged. Meaning when we put out tough energy, violent energy, non-ahimsa energy, then that energy eventually comes back to us. So that's what, it's not just don't judge other people so you don't get judged, because you say, but I don't judge other people and yet I get judged all the time. And so anyway, that's a different story. But it's more that we put out that energy and then it comes back to us. So it's better not to. For us. Again, it's more useful to us to not go through that. So, coming back to this, among the earliest conversations, in the conversation that Babaji had with Lahiri Mahashaya, Babaji suddenly quoting the Bible. And so it just shows again how the unity between these two teachings is central to this line of masters. It isn't as if Babaji said to Lahiri Mahashaya, well, Christ says that we've got to do this, and that's fine. But, and then just all started quoting from the Gita and so on, and we'll mention the Bible if we have to. His first words were, the office was brought for you, and not you for the office. He later explained that, or Lahiri Mahashaya perceived that, because Lahiri Mahashaya had been transferred to Raniket, and that's where he met Babaji. And Babaji actually had put the thought in the mind of Lahiri's boss to transfer him to Raniket, just so he could then come to Babaji. And then as soon as he went through this, in fact, Kriya initiation and so on, then he was suddenly transferred back to Benares. It said he was transferred by mistake. He should come back. It wasn't a mistake. It was that Babaji, did the little mind trick on him. Send Lahiri to Raniket. I will send Lahiri to Raniket. Lahiri, go to Raniket. This kind of thing. The masters can influence people's minds in that way. And so, we would like them to influence our minds. That's our job, is to open up to them more and more, because they're not using people for their ends. They're trying to make us what they are. That's why the masters come. You could say they're coming to clone, trying to make more masters, but not carbon copies of themselves. Although, as Prasanna was saying the other day, but we want to be carbon copies. Anything that the masters do, we want to do exactly like them, and so on. And I agree. And yet, at the same time, it's very helpful to understand the unity of these scriptures, because it also helps us not to think in terms of separation. It's Maya that separates. That's really what Maya even means, the measurer. As soon as we measure something, analyze it, label it, then it becomes different from something else. As soon as we can perceive it as something to measure, it becomes separate. And so instead, what we want to look for is how these things are the same, how they are brought together, how they express the same one truth, and so on. And so when we are tuning into these early readings in the first part of the year, they talk a lot about creation. Swamiji didn't just pick random Bible quotes and random Bhagavad Gita quotes and bring them together. He brought ones together that Master had shown were similar, or that are self-evidently similar, as we just read right now. But also, Swamiji didn't just finding these two passages that relate to each other. He didn't just pick one here and put one there, and then let's have another one, and what do I feel like reading this week? He clearly put them together in a progression throughout all the 52 weeks of the year to try to cover all the teachings of the spiritual path, so that in the course of a year's time, we would get a full education, you could say, on all of this. And that's quite a job. And so the very beginning ones are fundamental on talking about light versus darkness, of light as the only reality. That's a very practical teaching, because very often it is said incorrectly that darkness is the actual reality. Now, if someone says darkness is the reality like that, we say, oh, no, it's not. Light's a reality. Why? Oh, Krishna told me. I know it's not. That's what people say. Okay, that's something. It's better to know that than nothing. But it comes up in other ways. When we say, I'm such a bad person. Why? Because I did that bad thing. Then we are saying darkness is the reality, not light. And it's not. It's just a mistake that we did. Even being able to see that we made the mistake, that it wasn't as good a thing as we could have done, that is bringing light into the situation. But then to feel badly about it, that's saying that that's who I am. I am flawed. I am weak. I am these limitations. That's not who we are. We are the immortal soul. Immortal. Master said some people pray for immortality. He said, what a silly thing to do. Why pray for something you already have? He said, you are immortal. This body isn't immortal, but the soul is immortal. We go on forever. Someone asked him, is there any end to evolution? He said, no end. You go on until you achieve endlessness. Such a beautiful answer. And so in the same way, when we are too hard on ourselves, then we are affirming that the darkness is our reality, and it isn't. Just say, okay, I learned from my mistake. Maybe I will do better next time. That's my prayer. Never mind, let's go forward. Don't feel badly. And if you feel badly, don't feel badly that you're feeling badly. We're not supposed to feel badly. Oh, I'm feeling badly. I can't stop it. Chant, go for a walk, read some funny story, do something just to lighten up. And so, on the other hand, it's a big battle to go from darkness to light, because you could say the ego is that darkness which blocks the light of the soul. And that is what we are trying to move through. So when we can overcome that darkness, penetrate that veil, and get through to the light beyond, then we're done. So that's in one way of looking at it, that's the only battle before us. That's the only challenge we have. And so let's try to win the small battles so that we can win the war. Now, and in this next statement about how that did God create the universe or become it? Again, it's a very practical teaching, because as Swami said, it's not that God created the universe by going to the lumber store and getting some wood and some nails from the hardwares, from Vijaya Hardwares, and start, assembling the world out of it. He had nothing to make the world out of but himself. And so as it says, he vibrated a portion of his consciousness. as the scriptures say. And this vibration, of course, is represented. It's hard to say the word vibration, especially if you don't really know what the word vibration means. And so it's often, and it's not only that, but it's also true that where there is movement, where there is vibration, there is sound. And so in this same way, I was thinking, well, but I'm doing this and you're not hearing anything. But if you came really close, you would hear something. You would hear the rush of air. And then it reminded me of, because my mind is sort of a little bit on a wandering mode this morning, that it's interesting that if you take the different kinds of bird feathers, that, for example, a crow's feather, if you take it and you go like this, just with a single feather, you hear that way. But if you take an owl's feather, which is, bigger than a crow's feather, and you go like this, you don't hear anything. Owls' feathers are much quieter in their flight. Why? Because they have to be to eat. They have to sneak up on little things and snatch them in the middle of the night. And so they fly silently. So anyway, interesting. But you still, if you got really close, you could probably hear something. Where there is movement, there is sound. And so whenever you see the word sound in the scriptures, or you hear about sound and the cosmic sound, you can take it literally that way. But also know that it means that vibration. It's that vibration that brings everything into manifestation. Swamiji gave the example of, because he always wanted to make these things concrete and clear. He said vibration produces the appearance of solidity in the way that the rotating blades of a fan, if you spin a fan, then it looks like a solid disc. It's motion, it's not solid, but that motion gives the appearance of solidity. So vibration gives the appearance of all these solid forms. Physics agrees. It says every particle, atoms, protons, electrons, all of these have a specific rate of vibration. And that's how they describe it, as a rate of vibrations, that they are vibrating. So again, it's the same truth, approached from the material side instead of the spiritual side. Same truth. I have to mention, well, I don't have to, but I'm going to mention that speaking of the spinning, rotating blades of a fan giving the appearance of solidity, I was new to Ananda, and I was young, and I was sort of still full of all kinds of thoughts and ideas and ways that, we could make these truths more clear and so on. And so when Swamiji had written, and I heard him in a talk say, these rotating blades of a fan give the appearance of solidity, I thought, wow, okay, what a good image. I wonder how I could improve upon that. And so I thought, not only do they give the appearance of solidity, but they actually even behave a little bit like solid matter. If the fan is spinning very fast and you throw a rock at it, it will bounce off. It won't bounce off as if it were a stationary disc, but still, it will hit something and come back as if it's solid. So, armed with this bright idea, I went to a satsang that Swamiji was giving, and in the course of the satsang, he happened to bring up again this image, and how he said it was so thrilling when he was writing the book to have this clarity, because when you have an example that everybody can see and go, oh yeah, sure, that's obvious. He said, as a writer, I find it very satisfying. And so, seeing my opportunity, I said, and Swami, and one of the amazing things about that, you throw a rock at the fan and then it bounces off. And he said, yeah, it's because of the motion, of course. He said, if you were to sit on it, it would give you another impression. No, he said, it gives that impression. And then he said, if you were to sit on it, it would give you another impression. And so anyway, I was very embarrassed, but rightly so. I was learning very, very slowly. So anyway, the thing to remember then is that if God became the manifested universe, if he became creation, it means he also became us. Unless you're somehow separate from creation, which you aren't, none of us are, that we have within us the immortal soul, that touch of God, that spark of the infinite. That's really all we are. And all these other things are just extra. They're not really who we are. We are that spark of the divine. Again, it's a great teaching because we can affirm that instead of affirming the mistakes and so on, or whatever superficial things, or even affirming or agreeing what other people say. We are all the soul, not you. I don't know what you are. Forget it. Everyone's the soul. If we find ourselves critical of someone else, no. Remember when one of Master's disciples was criticizing somebody, and seemingly justifiably, the guy was drunk on the job and making mistakes. It's not a long story, but not one I care to go into right now. And so this person self-righteously and indignantly, how dare he, was judging him in his mind only. And Master came out of the door of the hermitage right up to him and said, "Don't criticize him. God loves him very much." And he will say that to us if we are criticizing, and he will say it to someone else if they're criticizing us. God loves him very much. It wasn't just that man, it's everybody. It's all of us. Why does God love you very much? Well, obviously it's clear why he loves you very much, but no, I'm kidding. He loves everyone very much. He does, but he loves everyone very much. Why? We're a part of him. We're the same. God is love. So that means we are love too. We just have to get clarity around that. So that's all we are. Just as God became the universe, so we are trying to trace our divine origin back to him, saying, "You became me, I want to become back one with you." Now, the only sort of concern I can imagine in that is, yes, but if we merge with God, do we lose our individuality? Do we just sort of dissolve into God and then we're gone? And we're supposed to be happy about it because that's what they say. But I'm a little worried because if I just got deleted, like some files or something, and got put back into the universal hard drive, then, I mean, I kind of like to be aware of myself. I like to know what's going on. Remember, when you merge into God, you become all-knowing, like God is. That means you know also that you once weren't God. If you know everything, you also know that it was Jude who became one with God in that last incarnation. You have that memory, as Master said. You don't lose your memory of your separate awareness. You can always recall it to mind. Some saints who are fully liberated, not just liberated, fully liberated, still come down to earth, incarnate in a body to enjoy an I and thou relationship, as they put it. And so you don't lose anything. There is no erasing that way. What we lose is not the sense of individuality, but the sense of separation. And if you say, but individuality and separate, forget it. Just find God, then you explain it to me. Because that's really what we want. We want that experience. And if any one of you makes it, please do tell me, because we want that in this lifetime. So go for God. Is the only reality there is. God bless you.